Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Richard Fleming. Today is Monday, the 18th of January, 2021. Earlier today, I did a video looking at concerns with SARS-CoV-2, and one of the people listening to the video asked a very specific question regarding what we know about the individuals who were part of the studies with the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, the type of information that was provided to the FDA that resulted in the emergency use authorization of these vaccines for people across all age groups with all health problems in all fields of responsibility. As you might imagine, as a scientist, physician, I depend upon written documents and information to provide the type of knowledge that I'm looking for, or direct communication from those involved. I want to share the screen so that you can have an opportunity to see some of the information that I have a chance to look at to answer this type of question. The first document that you're seeing here that I'm bringing your attention to is the emergency use authorization document that was provided through the FDA for Americans to understand justifying the use of the Pfizer vaccine. This document was made available on the 10th of December 2020 at the medical briefing that some of you may have had an opportunity to tune in and watch. And one thing that you will note is a very specific statement under the results that states that all of the information collected has to do with healthy adults between the ages of 18 to 55. The only data presented were on what was considered healthy adults between the ages of 18 to 55. Not elderly individuals, not people with comorbidities, not specifically focusing on healthcare workers, which you will find interesting when we get to some of the documents in a few moments. This is the emergency use authorization document provided for the Moderna vaccine. And when you look at it, it too says healthy adults 18 and older, healthy adults, which would raise the question, well, what is meant by a healthy adult? Who do these clinical trials include? The absent better knowledge or information being provided by big pharmaceutical companies right now making these vaccines, providing documents for the emergency use authorization and publishing papers in the medical journals, we're left with the need to go look for ourselves at what's called the National Clinical Trials.gov website. And for those of you that are interested, you'll find my NCT, my National Clinical Trial, also on this website. You can look up NCT 04349410, and you'll find much of the information about those that were included in the study and those that were excluded from the study. In other words, the people that might have a bad outcome and which we have no knowledge or information about. And what you will find is that if you go to the National Clinical Trials.gov website and you go to find studies, you can type in information like the SARS-CoV-2 Pfizer vaccine, and you will find that there are two that are not yet recruiting, one that's active but not yet recruiting, only 2 of the 5 recruiting. This one is outside of the United States, so the FDA wouldn't have had those documents to look at, and this one inside of the United States. When you click on that, you come to this study. This study, BioNTech SE by Pfizer, provides information that you need to know when you're asking a question, is it safe or effective to be giving this vaccine to people in the United States, and which ones? There's been a major push to get the healthcare providers vaccinated with this vaccine and older individuals vaccinated with this vaccine. Now, there's a lot of things that they're looking for here. This is what they're looking for in the studies. and the outcome measures that they want to determine whether they're getting a result. Did you have complications, diarrhea? Did you get sick, short of breath? A variety of factors. However, eligibility criteria is what you're looking for. For the Pfizer vaccine, it was anybody, and this is an ongoing trial, which means Pfizer doesn't know what the outcome of this information is. Here are the people that are included, and here are the people that are excluded from the study. Well, who are they? Well, they're people who have psychiatric disorders or immune deficiency syndromes or severe allergic reactions, or people that may have had medications for the treatment of SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. They've been involved with something else. If they have high blood pressure, diabetes, pulmonary disease, asthma, if they're a vapor or smoker, if they've been a smoker, if they're overweight, or if they're expecting to have any immunosuppressant treatment in the upcoming months. In other words, do they have cancer or some type of immune disorder? Who else were excluded? People at high risk for having SARS-CoV-2. In other words, the healthcare workers and emergency personnel that are receiving the vaccine now with a push are specifically excluded from being looked at in the study. People with immune deficiencies, people with autoimmune disorders, people who are pregnant, that would be women, or breastfeeding, prior vaccinations, immunocompromised people on all sorts of drugs, whether it be inhaled or by mouth. Problems with immunoglobulins, other individuals include if they've had any recognition of having antibodies in the past, or have hepatitis or a number of other abnormal problems, healthcare problems, including heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity, as we've seen. Well, that's the Pfizer study. The Moderna study can be addressed the same way. You go into the national clinical trials, you type in Moderna vaccines, and you'll find out that there's only 4 studies listed here, one of which is not yet recruiting for the oral side effects. Raises questions in my mind as to what types of problems have alerted them to study what's going on in the mouth by people who are getting a vaccine. Here's one that they're looking at the effectiveness in healthcare personnel in Israel. So that's not what they got. Let's see, this one says active but not yet recruiting, or not currently recruiting. This one is in the United States, and this one is in people between 12 and 18. Well, we know that the Moderna vaccine emergency use authorization was not for individuals under 18, which means the study that we have to go look at is this one. And when we click on that, this is what we see. Dose confirming study to evaluate safety, reactogenicity, and immunogenicity of the mRNA virus. And lo and behold, it's from Moderna. Now, when we go down and we follow the same approach, golly, they were looking for 600 people. We can see what they're looking for, what the outcomes are, and the eligibility requirements. And here's the criteria to come into the study. But who's excluded in the study? Well, if you've had SARS-CoV-2, if you've been traveling outside of the United States, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, if your temperature has been elevated so we don't know what's going on, if you've been part of an investigational study with another vaccine, which would be the Pfizer vaccine or somebody else's, if you have any type of medical, psychiatric, or occupational condition that could interfere with the problem, if you're a healthcare worker or an emergency response team, they've excluded healthcare workers and emergency first line people again in this, but now they are vaccinating us like their lives depend upon it, except that it's our lives that depend upon it. If they smoke, whatever they're smoking, any cigarette use, illegal drug use, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, diabetes, lung disease, heart disease, if you're in a nursing home, if the elderly in the nursing home is an exclusion criteria, and for both of these vaccines, Why would you then vaccinate these people? Other toxicity problems or immunocompromised problems or liver disease or a variety of other reactions, bleeding disorder, malignancy. In other words, if you're a cancer patient, if you've received other vaccines like influenza or influenza or pneumovax or anything else, or if you've had a blood product, or if you've donated blood, if you've been part of any type of interventional clinical study at all for screening, and if any member in the household is also participating in a research study. Now, I also found another study that was listed by some other company, another vaccine. This is CureVac AG is the company. Everybody's getting into it. And when you look down here at their outcomes, the same type of stuff, the inclusion and exclusion, we find the same types of exclusion criteria. Any type of evidence that you've had SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19, if you're a woman who's pregnant or breastfeeding, if you've been involved in any type of vaccine or drug investigational study, if you're immune suppressed in it for any reason, if you're getting corticosteroids or other methotrexate or other drugs for rheumatoid arthritis or a variety of health problems, or if you have lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease, multiple myeloma, cancers, in other words, hepatitis, viral infections, HIV, leukemia, kidney disease, or any other organ or bone marrow, or if you have angioedema, which is that swelling that occurs that will kill people in an allergic response, or any type of allergy response, anything with any type of acute or chronic medical or psychiatric illness. Well, acute means sudden and chronic means long-term. So you you can't be included in this if you have any other type of problems like heart disease, gastrointestinal disease, liver disease, kidney disease, pulmonary disease, endocrine diseases, neurologic problems. In other words, there are a huge number of people excluded from the vaccine studies to determine if these vaccines are safe or effective. And the FDA has approved two of these drugs, these experimental drugs, not yet proven to be safe or effective in people, of which the emergency use authorization documents show only people over 18, one, the Pfizer between 18 and 55, the Moderna over 18, in healthy individuals. There are a lot of non-healthy individuals, elderly individuals, and frontline workers who were excluded and are still excluded from participating in the research to determine if these vaccines are safe or effective. So the answers are that the emergency use authorizations were provided to two drugs in healthy individuals in a narrow range without any health problems at all. And now the vaccines are being given to people across the board, particularly if they're older, and particularly if they have health problems, and particularly if they're in nursing homes, and particularly younger or any age healthcare worker, as we've seen lining up. The FDA approved the vaccination of all comers, and particularly individuals who have been excluded from the research to determine the safety and efficacy of these vaccines. This is Dr. Richard Fleming, and today is Monday, the 18th of January, 2021.